Right now, just this month, more than 200 boys and girls, some of them as young as 9 years old, were arrested at a city bar right here in Nairobi, Jerry Bar, along Du Bois Road. Now, the minors, some of them as young as 9 years old, as I said, were drinking alcohol and dancing while police arrested them at that particular bar. Police found the children with alcohol in cans, rolls of bang and condoms. Barely 2 weeks before that particular arrest, a group of 550 students, most of them minors, were arrested in a basement disco in Eldoret. The children had lied that they were going for choir practice and shopping. Now, of those arrested, 500 of them were below the age of 18. The youngest was 12. 2 months before that, in August, 41 high school students were arrested for smoking bang, drinking and having sex in a bus in Kirinyaga County en route to Nairobi. This is Monday Special. I'm Jackie Maribe, and tonight we're going to be discussing underage drinking, teenagers and sex. What exactly is the issue? Why is this trend rising? And very quickly, I will be introducing my panelists. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Dr. Catherine Mutisya is joining us. Of course, she is the head of drug and substance abuse at the Ministry of Health and a psychiatrist as well. We have Tony Kibet, who is a recovering drug addict, right? And a university student at Daystar University. On my right, we're joined by Dr. Elias Zulu, research and policy analysis. He will also be talking to us about research on youth issues tonight. Next is Catherine Mutundu. She is a consultant on social issues. And finally, we have Eric Kiniti, corporate relations head at KBL. Thank you all so much for joining us on this show tonight. Now we'll get right into it, and I will be going through some statistics that were released just this month by Ipsos Synovate. 36.7%, if we can bring that up, of people under the age of 18 years in the country have consumed alcoholic beverages. If we can just bring that up on our screen once again, 36.7% of people under the age of 18 years in the country have consumed alcoholic beverages. 49.3% of underage alcohol consumers aged between 12 and 16 years were introduced to their first drink by relatives and friends. And most of the comments that we're getting, of course, say that it was also parents. This is something we'll be looking into. Over 56% of underage alcohol consumers had their first drink between the age of 12 and 16 years. At least 3 in every 10 children in the country are said to have consumed alcohol. 3 in every 10 children. Now, this habit is almost evenly skewed between those that receive over 3,000 shillings and less than 500 shillings per term. Now, peer pressure is the leading driver of alcohol consumption among minors at 36.8%, followed by drinking for fun at 35.5%. Alcohol consumption is high on special occasions at 44.9%, followed by school holidays at 32.9%. I'll start with you, Dr. Catherine Mutisya. From those statistics, the trend is on a high. What exactly is the problem that we're facing right now with teenagers aged below the legal age limit of 18 engaging in alcohol, drinking consumption and sex?
Thank you very much. I would begin by saying that for an underage to start drinking, they need to be aided by an adult, because the law is clear that alcohol should not be sold to under 18. And on the other hand, we also know that teenagers and young people need a lot of supervision. There's also peer pressure, and so it is a duty of all of us to make sure that we fight the habit of underage drinking. Yes.
All right, Dr. Elias Zulu, I'll come to you very quickly. From research and from what we have seen around us, the access to alcohol by these children? Is it something that you agree is introduced by relatives and by friends, by parents? What exactly is the kind of research that you have seen when it comes to underage drinking?
I think the research, NACADA produced a report a few years ago which kind of actually underestimated the gravity of the problem. Now I think when you look at the research, the results, the statistics that you just quoted, we really see that this problem is a huge problem. It's I mean, we can't continue, you know, being in self-denial. I think the big problem we have now, we are really a society in self-denial, both from the parents' point of view, the schools, the religious spaces, and so on. There's something that is not going well there, and the statistics are showing it. So I think in terms of really what needs to be done, I think that we really need to face this problem head on. We need to listen to these statistics. I think that it would be you know, a series of all of us as parents, as religious leaders, as political leaders, to look at these statistics and continue a situation where you allow nightclubs to admit underage children. The law has to play its course. We all know in Nairobi schools now, there are some schools where, you know, teenagers are actually, kids are being tested. They are doing drug tests to see who is involved, because the problem has actually gone out of hand. So I think the question is, we are definitely a society in denial. How do we get out of this? The kids are the future. If they get messed up now, they are the group that 15, 20 years now are going to be our leaders. What sort of leaders are we going to have?
All right, Catherine, is this a failure on the part of parents when, you know, charity begins at home?
Exactly. So
everything begins from home. Is this a failure on our part as parents?
It's a big failure on part of the parents, and the increase is by the youngsters. They are making a statement. They are saying, you lost us. We are on our own. You are too busy with what you are doing. You as our parents, you didn't have time for us. And we have cried to you. We have had school unrest. We have had a lot of things going on in school. We have burnt our dormitories. And we are trying to reach you parents, but you could not hear us. We have done things that you could not be expected from the children, but we are doing them because you are not there for us. And now we are making a statement and saying enough is enough. And it could even get worse. So I feel there is a lot to do with the parents, because when a child is molded properly at the grassroots and he grows with the right values, even if the beer is accessible, he will drink it so long as he's properly molded by the parents. But the parent was not there for this child, and he got lost, and he has cried. I said they are making a statement. We have cried, we have done so many things, but you did not have time to listen to us. You are too busy on your careers, you are too busy on your profession, forgetting that even us, bringing us as children, is a career, and it's also a profession. So I feel the children are saying, parents, you have failed, and you have lost us. And we are even doing these things to attract your attention, to tell you, you left us, and we are on our own. And they are saying it with a lot of desperation and despair. That's why sets and the OG you are hearing on are coming up.
All right, I want to bring you in very quickly, Eric. Let's talk about the Under 18 Asipewe campaign. Tell us a bit about that and what exactly you're doing also as an organization.
Yes, Under 18 Asipewe campaign, we started it off in March, and it was on back of the research that we had done with Ipsos, trying to understand the issues that are facing at the underage. And one of the things we found out was yes, the relatives are involved in introducing the kids to drinking. But for us, our biggest concern was that in all the cases that are reported, an adult is always involved. For youth to access alcohol, there's an adult who is involved in giving, selling, or just offering for tasting. So our key aim was to address the people who are the last line of defense for us, and those are the retailers. And what we've done in the last, since March, we've trained over 50,000 bartenders, and taught them about what the law says. You'll be surprised some of them didn't know that the law actually penalizes them for selling to underage. And also we have gone ahead to talk to the bar owners as well, because they're also culpable. But as I'm saying, the biggest issue is that the adults have to take responsibility. We have to protect the minors. All right.
Tony, let's come to you now. You started at 17. You got into alcohol, you got into drugs. Take us through that journey, how it has been for you. Where did you reach until you said, this is enough? How did you start, first of all?
Okay, for me, you've mentioned peer pressure so many times, and for me, before it even got to that point of addiction, or like that first drink, it was peer pressure. And it started back in college, and I also had this kind of notion, which right now I know it was a very misguided notion, that drinking is cool, like that's what you do in campus, and that's how it started. But most of us, and like many of my peers that time, we used to drink, like the social drinking, but you never know that point where it will get into addiction. And at that time, really no one knew like anything to do with addiction. So for me, actually, what really triggered me into like now using, like abusing, like the chemical dependency, was a broken relationship. And you've also spoken of the parents' role in this. And I must say, like that time, like back then, the lines of communications weren't very open. So I was alone in it, and the only way like I could like regain my self-esteem was to go into drugs, like drinking. And that's at that point that I really got into like that active drinking, where I can't do without it.
At what point did your family discover that you consume alcohol, now you're using drugs, and what happened from there?
Actually, when I started drinking, they couldn't see it because it was during the weekends. I was a boarder. But when it got to that point of dependency, I couldn't hide it. Like my eyes are always red because I'm stoned every time. And like using, like addiction, it also not just like physically, but also like your character. So like I would steal things from home, like to be able to satisfy my using, like to be able to buy whatever it is, the drugs I'm using. So like all these signs like hinted to them that I'm using, like I'm using drugs. Yep.
And from there, what happened? How then did the process shift?
I suffered a lot of afflictions, especially in my college, especially like classwork, and also outside school. I'll spend nights in police cells, and all this time, like they were constantly getting worried about me, like the trend of which, like my behavior was going to. And the final point, like the point I said I hit rock bottom, was where I was suspended from college. And it's at that point that I felt like my life has completely gone down. So actually, like going through all this, they actually introduced me to a psychiatrist whom I used to see every time, and it's through the sessions I had with this psychiatrist that now I was able to tell them that he's in addiction. Yeah.
Dr. Mutisya, as a psychiatrist, this is something you hear often. From what I can get from you is, it's cool to drink. There are these things they call jam session, right?
Yeah.
And you're not cool if you don't attend jam session. Mostly there's Sundays between 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock. From what you're hearing from Tony, and from what you've heard from other patients maybe coming to you, is this something that is too common? Peer pressure, it's too cool. If you're not doing this, then you're not cool, or you're not in a social status among them.
Yes, various factors would lead a young person to get into alcohol and any other drug of abuse. Number one is the environment and the communication they get. We know that when children are young, below 10 years, most of them know alcohol is not good, but from 13 years, they start getting mixed messages, and it's even worse when the parent or an uncle or a close family introduces the alcohol to them. So we need to pass the right message right from the early childhood. The peer pressure is very big on them, and we need to encourage our children and help them learn how to resist pressure and how to choose good friends. And we also need to make them identify hobbies which they could be able to channel their energy, and to also the role of supervision. We cannot avoid that, but we also know other young people would get into drugs of abuse because they have emotional problems, those who have not bonded in the family well. And that's why we encourage parents to be, the family to be a safe haven for these young people, so that when they're under stress, they can open up to their parents. So it's many factors, environment being number one, emotional issues, and of course peer pressure. Yes.
All right. I'm just going to go through a couple of messages that we are receiving from you. Of course, do keep your feedback coming. Lack of poor protection and counseling from parents leads to children engaging in drugs. Dolly from Embu says anyone found selling alcohol to underage children should be jailed for life because they are murderers. Interesting. Sally from Kiambu says the cause of increasing cases of children taking alcohol is because parents buy takeaways and drink at home following introduction of alcohol, which transferred homes into bars. Do keep your messages coming in, of course, through 22422 on Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is Monday Special KE. We take a short break now. Don't go away. We'll be back after these messages. Thank you for staying tuned to Monday Special. We're discussing teenagers and alcohol. And, you know, right before we went to the break, we were discussing what some of those causes are that, you know, lead the under 18, so to speak, to engage in sex, in underage drinking. But the question is, we're seeing it's a problem that society is quote-unquote saying it's not my problem, it's somebody else's problem. And we were discussing this just before we went to the break. Catherine, I want to come directly to you.
Yes.
When some of these people even walk into a bar and see this is a child, what are they doing here? They don't act. This is not my problem, this is somebody else's problem.
Yeah. And this is the misconception we have. We are saying it is theirs, not mine. And when you leave this child to drink and you think yours is okay, is safe, it is this very child who will go and mug your child to get money to drink. So I think it's high time parents will change attitude and take these children as ours, irrespective of whose child you are dealing with. And we should also be open-minded. And we should not fear what people are going to say, because that is another issue. And parents, we should also not be hypocritical, because if I come and tell you I've seen your child and I've disciplined him, the next thing you are going to do is to take me to court. So we must have this idea that these children belong to society, and we have to discipline them together if we have to win this war, because this is a war we have to win. And parents have to come out of their way to do this. Number two, the parent must also open channels. When we are discussing at the beginning, we were told very correctly that peer pressure is one of the factors that is driving these kids to over drinking. It is true. There's a lot of peer pressure out there, but there's also a lot of pressure at home by the same parents. They are pushing these kids too much. They want their kids to excel, to get A's. Not all children can get an A. We are calling upon the parents, if we are to win this war, to let the children be, let the youth be. Encourage them for what they get. If they get a B, it's okay for them. That is their A. If they get a C, that is the child's A. I wish the parents could encourage their children for what they get, and also be there to identify different talents other than the A's. Because when you push these children too hard, then they are going to the bottom. Number three, let there be the channels of communication. Parents, please open channels of communication, so that when my son here gets peer pressure from where he is, he has somebody to come and talk to and say, I was bullied, and it won't happen, I was sodomized. But if we don't have that channels of communication, when our children come to us as parents and we have no time to talk to them, we are too busy, and we close up, then the child closes up with all those problems. And most of the time we are throwing them away. When a child says, Dad, I want to talk to you, you say, I know what you want to say. How do you know what they want to say? Please, can we listen to these youth, because they have a story to tell, and
make
but
sure
they have nobody
well
to tell them. And can we just give them that more time, let them talk to us, and then we shall have gone a long way into addressing this problem of overdrinking. Madam, let me say one thing. No child was born a drug addict. No child was born that. And no child walks from the home to go and drink. Something pushes him. And the parents have all it takes to stop this child from going there.
Exactly.
And those are some of the things I've said.
Exactly.
Yes.
Eric, we're living in a technology age.
Yeah.
You know, and like you're saying, we need to open these lines of communication, but we are allowing our children to be able to access mobile phones, and by doing that, they can access the internet. Social media, you know, WhatsApp, there are WhatsApp groups nowadays, you know, they have so much access to information and again to peer pressure as well. This advent of technology, has it served us, you know, on the positive or on the negative side when it comes to, you know, just monitoring what they're doing? They can plan these parties through their phones and the parents don't even know.
I think it has created a challenge in parenting, and I think we live in. But one of the things that we have to do is parents have to take that duty, and it involves other stakeholders as well, because when the kid has gone to school, the teacher is responsible. But we have to ensure that all the stakeholders are involved, and it's not a blame game. We cannot sit here and say it's parents who have failed. But I think as society, as adults, we've all failed. And what I think we should do, and what we've been trying to drive, is having stakeholder forums, which we've had 2 so far. The last one was last week on Thursday, involving the Restaurants Association, PERAC, involving the Teachers Association, the Parents Association, and enforcement agencies, because again there's the thinking that the law is there, so the law should take its course. But you cannot station a police officer outside every bar to police young people coming in to drink. It has to be done through a lot of stakeholders getting involved, and I think that's what we are trying to establish, a dialogue forum where we can talk about the issue, and we appreciate what the media is doing to raise the issue, because that's the only way as society we can start addressing it, and everyone has a role in this.
Because we're all intertwined. Right now, Dr. Zulu, do these children know the consequences of their actions?
I think the evidence on the table is that I think that the information that is flowing there in schools, in church, there's a lot of information that children get to show them what will happen if they indulge in drugs, if they indulge in sex and so on, but somehow it just doesn't hit them. I think they don't relate it at personal level, and I think the issues that my colleagues have been talking about here, the peer pressure, and you know, what does it mean to be cool? It's doing a lot of these things. So in the end, but I think to me also, I feel like I think there's a lot of things we can do at individual level, but also I think to address this issue at system level, at society level, at policy level, there's a lot that governments can do to help address this issue. I think, to me, when you look at a lot of other issues happening in Kenya, look at, you know, the exam, you know, people talking about exams being stolen. It's like there's always eagerness to get the easier way, pass the easier way, or reach the easier way, and so on. You look at the education system. Actually, if you look at how many hours kids now spend at home versus the amount of time they spend in schools, I think the vast majority of the time is being spent in school. And we have to ask the question, what sort of education are our kids getting? Is it education that is just geared towards passing that exam, getting that A, or is it education that is geared towards building the young people in their entirety as responsible human beings? And I think the evidence is on the table. The quality of education has been going down. It's more focused on passing exams. There's very, very little, you know, development of skills, so that, because parents can't always be there. The police, as my colleagues have said, cannot always be there. Young people always face a situation where you see a bad thing that you know, based on the information you've gotten, this is not the correct thing to do. How do you make a decision to avoid it? I think it's the empowerment, and I think the reform of the education system in the country to make sure that it's really focused on developing these skills, problem solution among young people and so on, will go a long way in helping. And I think at policy level, we're also seeing the issues we are saying. Why should clubs that are admitting young people continue operating? It means a lot of adults, there are adults introducing people to alcohol and drugs, but there are those adults who are supposed to help stop this that are sleeping on the job. Now, if we are a society that will see somebody sleeping on the job and continue going forward, you know, business as usual, then this problem will just get worse and worse. And finally, let me just say, like the young man we have on the panel here, I mean, there are a lot of positive stories out there as well. So we shouldn't talk as if every young person is doing these things and so on. When we talk about 20% or 18% of those aged 15 to 17 having indulged in alcohol, there's 80% plus who haven't. Understanding what builds that resilience, understanding what got him to actually reverse from the path that he had taken would go a long way in designing programs that would actually help resolve these issues at a broader level.
All right, and Kibet, I just want to bring you in at this point. You know, when you were hooked, so to speak, yourself and among your peers, did you ever stop to think of, you know, the risk that you're putting yourself into? You know, alcohol is here, you can freely engage in sex, unprotected sex even at that time. We've just had, at these clubs, they found condoms. So we do know that, you know, underage are engaging in sex. There's so much that's associated with that. HIV and AIDS, you know, they can get pregnant. Were you aware, and were you, you know, saying that, okay, fine, this is a risk, but I want to be cool?
You know, with addiction, I actually, you know it's wrong. Like myself, for example, I'll get into so many kind of troubles, and each time I'll be like, this is the last time I'm doing drugs, you know. As in my mind, I'm like, I now know, like, I don't want to go to this road again, and 2 weeks wouldn't end, and I'm back to the same kind of using. So I guess, you know, addiction is actually a disease, and at that time, most young people really don't know about addiction, because you just use, you think it's fine, you know, like, you know, like it's cool, you know, like you're doing it, you know. But when you come to understand that addiction actually makes you do the things that you promised never to do, you know, and actually during addiction you hurt the people like you swore never to hurt, including yourself, because most times I even had suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, and all these things. I really didn't think I had a problem, you know. I actually thought the people around me are the ones who have a problem. Yeah. What
made you get your wake-up call and decide to change?
Okay, that awakening actually happened while I was in rehab, but I must say it takes God's hand, you know, like just to come to that point of realization, you know, that I'm actually that I need to change my ways, because I know I have many friends that whom we've been with in rehab, but they come out and they relapse. No, but it really takes some spirit of discernment. And you know, like with teenagers nowadays, I must say, one of the other pressures besides peer pressure, one of the other pressures that they face is the entertainment, the kind of music videos you watch, the kind of movies. Most like hip hop music, like secular music, vulgar music. Most of the time they're all about drinking, women and all. But actually right now as a musician, I've come to find out that most of the secular artists that rap about drinking and all, most times they themselves don't drink. So I think it calls for a spirit of discernment, you know, to understand that there's nothing cool about drinking. So like this flashy rapper, and he's, you know, like he's rapping about drugs and all, but himself, his life, his focus. It's
very different. Daktari, just you know, as we come to a close, your parting shots, what, you know, would be your message in as far as we're trying to get solutions to this, to the parents, to society out there? What should we do? How do we move forward and ensure that we put an end to this, if not control it?
I would like to tell the young people that their minds are still developing. We know the brain develops until mid-20s, and when at that time, at teenage, that's the time they are risk-taking, the brain is still developing, and they are not ready physically, emotionally, even for sexual activity. So we want to pass the right message that alcohol and other drugs have a lot of effects on your physical body, right from the brain, the liver, and the people who start using alcohol early are the ones who end up later adding more drugs or even getting addicted. So we need to pass that message, and we need to encourage them that you can still say no and it's not cool to be using drugs, and the other ways you can cope up with your issues. So we need to pass the message to the young people.
All right, indeed. Have you been affected directly or indirectly? Let us know. 22422 is the SMS number. You can, of course, send us your comments regarding tonight's topic. Leave your name and the location as well on Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag is Monday Special KE. We take another short break. We'll be back after these messages with Hussein Mohammed.
You don't want to talk, Jackie.
You're here, right. So...
Welcome back to Monday Special. Let's take a look at your feedback now. And we start with what you've been saying on Twitter using the hashtag Monday Special KE. Nyambura Daniel says it all narrows down to ineffective parental guidance and community neglect of good morals.
Cynthia Oprah says universities should be strict on students who smoke and drink in school.
Asava says parents are to blame for being too busy to be actively engaged in their kids' lives.
Kabiwa Jesus says, I was introduced to alcohol at 4 years by my grandfather, and from then I knew that's the way you define manhood.
4
wow.
years. 4 years.
4 years old.
At Magda Kaskos, communication between parents and children should be enhanced.
Adolescent Health says quality of education on the decline. Education reforms critical for change to come by.
James Ogutu 22422 in Migori says young children cannot indulge themselves in drinking alcohol without an adult leading them to it. The unfortunate thing is that every happening gets our security officials unawares. And then somebody says, I live in Zimmerman Estate and it's a pity because we have more bars and wine and spirits than normal houses, residential houses. Even after the president declared them illegal, why can the authorities help us? They sell to underage children.
Of course, interesting insights. We'll be looking more into this. Of course, it doesn't end here. And I know very quickly, Kibet, you're saying you have a drugs swag event coming up?
Sunday, November 21st. It's actually an event to show people that can actually delight in a drug-free culture.
All right.
So please, you're invited, all young people, 21st November.
All right, very important. Youth coming out to tell fellow youth that, you know, you don't have to do this.
Yes.
All right. And you have one as well coming up?
Oh yeah, so we have an adolescent symposium, the first ever conference that's just looking at this problem. We know that a lot of things are not going well, so from the Minister of Health, with a lot of partners, including my own organization, the African Institute for Development Policy, we are convening this meeting to look at the evidence. The evidence on what is working, what is failing, what is building resilience. So we're looking at alcohol, drug abuse, we're looking at mental health for young people, non-communicable diseases, sexual and reproductive health. So it's a whole package.
All right.
And so I'm just inviting all of you out there to come and be part of this symposium, because at the end of the day, really, Kenya is not the only problem facing this. Some countries have, at policy level, at program level, tried to address these issues. So we need to look at the evidence on how we can plan more holistically on how to address these challenges.
All right, you're saying a lot of platforms available. Let's hope that we can be the change that we want to see.
Exactly, and we thank our panelists, and we thank you for your feedback on 22422 on Twitter using the hashtag Monday Special KE. Keep the conversation going. Jackie has nothing to scare me with, at least tonight. Whatever I was scared with last week has happened. And it's congratulations to Janet. I don't know how best I can say this.
To Janet and all right, let me do it my way.
Right.
Why do you not have the words though?
I don't know.
That's weird.
Just congratulations to Janet and Eddie.
Your co-anchor for how long?
Right.
We would like to congratulate Janet Mbugwa Ndishu and Eddie Ndishu on the arrival of their son, baby Ethan. Uhuru Ndishu, we wish you well. And, you know, we will keep Hussein busy until Janet comes back.
Right. Well, I'm here. She's baby Noro.
He is baby Noro.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'm Hussein Mohammed. Have a good night.
And I'm Jackie Maribe. Have a good night and God bless you next week.